Hi, welcome to 1500ESPN.com. We're here at TCF Bank Stadium right after the Gophers season opener. I'm Senior Editor Derek Wetmore. This is Gophers beat guy Nate Sandell. We were here covering the game, check out our stories, wanted to provide some video content too. So Nate, I want to ask you, what are your overall impressions of the Gophers in tonight's game?
You know, early on in that game, that first drive UNLV comes in, it kind of scared you a little bit of what you're going to get from the Gophers in this game, because I think one of the keys that I had coming in here was you want to see the Gophers punch a bunch of team like UNLV in the mouth, a team that they are better than, and that if you're in year 3 of a rebuild under Jared Kill, you need to prove that you can dominate one of those teams from front to back. But UNLV comes in and kind of caught them off guard with that no huddle offense. They seem to get a little tired. We can't deny that it was 91 degrees on field level. It was very, very warm, and guys were tired. They weren't ready for it entirely. They're just a little caught off guard. But as it went along, by the time they got to the first half, they just needed a jolt, and they got that big time with a couple key special teams plays, a big interception by Bobby Calhoun, and from that point on, it turned into what turned out to be the largest offensive output in the history of TCF Bank Stadium.
Sure, and you and I talked at halftime about, boy, this Gophers team is not looking very good right now. You said you've written some pieces this week that said they need to come out and set the tone. Mm-hmm. They really struggled to do that, but then, as you mentioned, got those sparks in the second half. Where did those come from, and how critical was that to their game tonight?
Well, first of all, you look at that end of the first half where offense struggles through the entire thing, and Philip Nelson was never able to get a rhythm in that first half with the offense. First of all, it started with the running game. Donnell Kirkwood just was going nowhere. Offensive line was having a couple communication issues early on. So Donnell Kirkwood goes nowhere. Philip Nelson is trying to make up for that in the passing game. That's not working. Philip Nelson ended up running, I think it was 6 times in the first half, and asked him afterwards if he was expecting to run that much. And he said, not at all. He said it just kind of was the read option, the way it turned out. And the whole idea coming from this coaching staff that we had heard so much was that they didn't want Philip Nelson shouldering that many carries. But it ended up being something where they needed a spark, and they had to look somewhere else. And Marcus Jones pulling that kickback, to see a guy coming off a pair of ACL injuries, it was a big question mark entering fall camp where he was going to be, where his speed was going to be at. To see him run that kickback, that was a huge jolt for the team, and just going to set the tone from that point on.
Sure, and then expanding on Jones too, head coach Jerry Kill talked after the game about the importance of special teams. What did you see from them, and what have you heard from the players and coaches?
Well, special teams is always a big point of emphasis with Jerry Kill, and it's something that was always part of his wheelhouse. It's one of his big emphasis throughout his coaching career. And you look back the last 2 years, where one of the areas that I think gets overshadowed sometimes, but where they struggled the most was finding good special teams. Just not only in the punting and kicking game, but in kick coverage, in the return game, in all of these facets of special teams. And you saw some problems today, but at the same time, to see Rashid Hageman leap up, blocks that field goal that would have made it a 7-point deficit for UNLV, ends up Martez Shabazz picks the ball up, runs it back for a touchdown, and all of a sudden you're looking at a game that was on its way to a rout. So just like that, a game can turn around. And that is something you haven't seen from the Gophers in the last 2 years. You haven't seen that big play mentality take hold. And to see that, even though you're talking about a UNLV running Rebels team, or I think it's the Rebels now, and just there's no run in there, but to see a team that, comes in here, 22-game road losing streak. Now it's 23, second longest in the nation. But still, to see the Gophers pull off these big plays, it gave in a game that seemed to be going one direction, it reversed it and gave it another layer of depth.
I think fair to say overall encouraged. There were definitely some things that need work, and Kill touched on that in his post-game press conference too. But overall, you come away scoring 51 points, the most points, as you mentioned, scored in TCF Bank Stadium history by the Gophers. That has to be a positive.
It's not going to be pretty for this squad as this thing gets turned around, if they're going to turn it around. And you've obviously seen that in the first 2 years. There are moments where it can get pretty ugly. And this is the type of game you're going to see this team go through, is that they're going to have those moments of those head-scratching moments of what are they doing. But if what you like to see is, again, we'll go back to that big play mentality at the end, something we haven't seen from them. that is key because they need to have that when you get to Big Ten play, because that's going to come through in those games that you start coming a little tighter with the Wisconsins, the Penn States of the world. When you're in those tight games, it's going to push them over the edge where before they may have faltered. And so I think from that standpoint, you got to be positive about it. But I think the one thing that was left completely open and still a major concern is what will they do on offense, especially with some of the struggles Philip Nelson had. Completely misread that play, 3 plays in the first half, gets picked off by UNLV. That was not a great start for him. And the running game, again, Donnell Kirkwood goes down with an ankle injury. Berkeley Edwards, the star freshman who'd gotten a lot of praise through fall camp, he's still out with a high ankle sprain. Not sure exactly on his timetable, but with those 2 guys out, the running game all of a sudden, as Kill even said in his postgame, that's a big concern going into New Mexico State. But as long as you have a defense that is continuing to be on the rise and a special team unit that's coming together, that bodes well for this team. That now it just needs the offense to come along and they can be that mid-tier Big Ten team. And I know that's not what Gopher fans entirely want to hear, but right now, if they get to that mid-level status this season, that's a win for this program.
For sure. Well, thanks for checking out the video. Keep following our Gophers coverage on 1500ESPN.com. I'm Senior Editor Derek Wetmore. That's Gophers guy Nate Sandell. Make sure to keep reading his Gophers football coverage. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.